The morning sun cast long shadows across Brandon Mitchell's corner office on the 38th floor of the Mitchell Tech building in Manhattan. At 39, he'd built an empire that dominated the technology sector, but success had come at a price few understood. His reputation preceded him everywhere. Brilliant, ruthless, and completely untouchable. 7 years of carefully constructed walls had turned him into something of a legend in New York's business circles. The CEO who never attended social functions. The millionaire who maintained a strict professional distance from everyone, especially women. The man whose smile never quite reached his eyes. Brandon adjusted his platinum cufflinks, a habit he'd developed when his thoughts drifted to dangerous territory. The morning headlines on his tablet announced another successful quarter, but his attention kept wandering to the empty desk outside his office. His previous executive assistant had retired last week, and today, the new one would arrive. He'd specifically instructed HR to select candidates based solely on qualifications, not gender. But when the final resume landed on his desk, belonging to one Ashley Bennett, he knew his carefully ordered world was about to face a test. Mr. Mitchell? Richard Chen, his HR director, appeared at his door. Ms. Bennett has arrived for her first day. Brandon straightened his charcoal gray tie. Send her in. The woman who walked through his door was nothing like the professional photograph in her resume. Ashley Bennett carried herself with a quiet confidence that immediately commanded attention. Her auburn hair was swept into a neat chignon, and her emerald eyes held an intelligence that couldn't be captured in pixels. "Good morning, Mr. Mitchell," she said, her voice clear and steady. "Thank you for this opportunity." Brandon remained seated, maintaining the physical distance he always kept. "Ms. Bennett, your references from Richardson Global were impressive. I trust you understand the demands of this position?" "Absolutely." She met his gaze without hesitation. "I've reviewed all the protocols and confidentiality requirements. I'm prepared to exceed your expectations." Something in her direct approach made Brandon's finger twitch against his desk, a microscopic crack in his usually perfect composure. He covered it by reaching for a folder. "Your primary responsibilities will include managing your schedule, coordinating with international offices, preparing briefings for board meetings, and ensuring all communication follows established security protocols," she finished smoothly. "I've already memorized the manual, Mr. Mitchell." For the first time in years, Brandon felt slightly off balance. He was used to people tiptoeing around him, not completing his sentences. "Indeed. Then you're aware that I expect absolute precision. And you'll have it." Ashley's lips curved into a subtle smile. "I should mention that I've also taken the liberty of reviewing today's schedule and noticed a potential conflict with the Tokyo video conference. I've already contacted their office to adjust the time, accounting for their holiday tomorrow." Brandon's eyebrows rose fractionally. The Tokyo call had been a scheduling nightmare waiting to happen, one he hadn't even addressed yet. That was initiative. "That's what you hired me for, isn't it?" There was no arrogance in her tone, just quiet competence. He stood, needing to regain control of the conversation. "Your desk is outside. Thomas will show you the security protocols for the computer system." Ashley nodded but didn't immediately turn to leave. Instead, she took one step forward, extending her hand. "I look forward to working with you, Mr. Mitchell." Brandon stared at her offered hand as if it were a live wire. 7 years of carefully maintained barriers screamed at him to step back, to maintain the distance that had become his armor. But declining would be unprofessional, a show of weakness he couldn't afford. With precise control, he extended his hand. The moment their palms met, a jolt of awareness shot through him. Her hand was warm, her grip professional but not aggressive. 5 seconds. He counted them in his head before withdrawing. "Welcome to Mitchell Tech, Ms. Bennett." His voice remained perfectly steady, betraying none of the chaos her simple touch had triggered. She turned and walked out, closing the door softly behind her. Brandon waited until her footsteps faded before releasing a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. He looked down at his hand, still feeling the ghost of her touch. Walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows, he stared out at the Manhattan skyline. 7 years of careful control had turned him into someone untouchable, unshakable. His company had flourished under his absolute focus, unmarred by emotional complications. One handshake shouldn't matter. One new employee shouldn't register as anything more than a necessary component of business operations. But as Brandon watched Ashley settle into her desk through the glass partition, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years: uncertainty. His phone buzzed with a message from Richard Chen. "Final background check on Bennett complete, all clear. But there's something interesting. She turned down a higher-paying position at Legacy Corp to work here." Brandon's jaw tightened. Legacy Corp was their biggest competitor, known for poaching Mitchell Tech talent with excessive salary offers. Why would someone choose a lower-paying position here? He watched as Ashley efficiently organized her desk, her movements precise and purposeful. There was something about her that didn't quite fit the typical executive assistant mold. Something that made him want to look twice to understand the puzzle she presented. The thought alone was dangerous. Brandon turned back to his desk, forcing his attention to the quarterly reports. He had built his success on control, on maintaining absolute professional distance. One intriguing new employee wouldn't change that. But as the day progressed, he found himself hyper-aware of her presence outside his office. The soft sound of her typing, the professional way she handled calls, the subtle scent of jasmine that drifted in when she brought him the updated conference schedules. Each time she entered his office, she maintained perfect professionalism, yet somehow her very competence made it harder to maintain his usual emotional distance. She didn't try to engage him in unnecessary conversation or make the awkward attempts at friendship his previous assistants had attempted. Instead, she simply executed her duties with an efficiency that both impressed and unsettled him. By evening, when most of the office had cleared out, Brandon remained at his desk, trying to focus on the Asian market reports. A soft knock at his door broke his concentration. "Mr. Mitchell?" Ashley stood in the doorway, coat draped over her arm. "I've completed the briefing materials for tomorrow's board meeting and sent them to your secure server. Is there anything else you need before I leave?" Brandon looked up, intending to dismiss her with his usual curt nod. Instead, he found himself asking, "Why did you choose Mitchell Tech over Legacy Corp?" If she was surprised by the personal question, she didn't show it. "Because some things are more important than money, Mr. Mitchell." She paused, then added, "And because I believe in working for someone who values excellence over ego." Her answer, direct and unexpected, left him momentarily speechless. Before he could respond, she gave him a small smile. "Good night, Mr. Mitchell." As her heels clicked down the hallway, Brandon sat in his darkening office, her words echoing in his mind. Excellence over ego. It was what he had built his company on, what he demanded from everyone who worked for him. But hearing it reflected back to him, spoken with such quiet conviction, stirred something he had long buried. He gathered his things, preparing to leave for the night. As he passed her empty desk, his eyes fell on a small post-it note stuck to her computer monitor. Excellence is not an act but a habit. Brandon felt his carefully constructed walls tremble, just slightly. For the first time in 7 years, he wondered if he had made a mistake in hiring someone. Not because Ashley Bennett wasn't qualified, but because she might be too qualified, too observant, too different. As he rode the elevator down to the parking garage, Brandon made a decision. He would maintain his distance, keep their interactions strictly professional, treat her just like any other employee. But deep down, in a place he refused to acknowledge, he knew it was already too late. Ashley Bennett had walked through his door and with one handshake had done what no one else had managed in 7 years. She had made him feel something. 2 weeks had passed since Ashley Bennett's arrival at Mitchell Tech, and Brandon found himself facing an unfamiliar sensation. Disruption. Not in his schedule, she managed that with frightening efficiency, but in the carefully constructed routine that had governed his life for 7 years. The morning sun hadn't yet touched the Manhattan skyline when Brandon stepped out of his private elevator. He always arrived early, savoring the quiet hours before the office came to life. But today Ashley's desk wasn't empty. She sat bathed in the blue glow of her computer screen. fingers moving across the keyboard with practiced precision. Her presence startled him enough that he almost missed a step. "Good morning, Mr. Mitchell," she said without looking up. "The Beijing team sent over the revised projections. I've highlighted the discrepancies for your review." Brandon paused at her desk, noting the steam rising from a fresh cup of coffee, his preferred Brazilian roast. "You're here early. I noticed you always arrive at 6. She finally looked up, meeting his gaze. "I figured we could make better use of the quiet hours." Something about the way she said "we" made his chest tighten. "That's not necessary, Ms. Bennett." "With respect, Mr. Mitchell, it is." She stood, gathering a folder. "The Anderson merger is moving faster than anticipated. Their CEO called last night, after hours in London." Brandon's eyes narrowed. "And you handled this?" "Of course." She handed him the folder. "Mr. Anderson was quite insistent about speaking with you, but given the time difference, I explained you were unavailable. However, I did gather all his concerns and drafted potential solutions for your review." Opening the folder, Brandon scanned her notes. They were comprehensive, showing a grasp of the merger's complexities that went far beyond her role as executive assistant. Her suggested solutions demonstrated an understanding of both companies' positions that even some of his senior executives hadn't grasped. "This is..." He paused, searching for a word that wouldn't reveal too much. "Thorough. I aim to be valuable, Mr. Mitchell, not just efficient." Her voice carried a quiet confidence that made him look up. A ray of early morning sun caught her face, highlighting flecks of gold in her green eyes. Brandon found himself noticing details he had no business observing. The graceful line of her neck, the subtle rose tint of her lips, the way her tailored navy dress emphasized. He cut off that line of thought sharply. "The coffee," he said, more abruptly than intended. "You didn't need to. Consider it a thank you." She smiled, and something inside him shifted uncomfortably. "For giving me this opportunity." Before he could respond, she was already moving on to the day's schedule, maintaining the professional distance he usually insisted upon. But as he listened to her outline the upcoming meetings, Brandon realized she had somehow breached his defenses in ways he hadn't anticipated. The morning progressed with its usual parade of meetings and conference calls, but Brandon found his attention repeatedly drawn to the glass partition separating their offices. He watched as she handled calls with a diplomatic grace that turned even the most aggressive clients cordial. Her laugh, professional but genuine, drifted through his door during a particularly tense negotiation with a difficult board member. "Yes, Mr. Davidson, I completely understand your concern," she was saying, "but I can assure you Mr. Mitchell has already anticipated this issue. If you'll check the proposal section on market volatility." Brandon found himself standing, moving, closer to his door to hear better. The way she handled Davidson, a notoriously difficult board member, was masterful. She wasn't just deflecting or placating. She was actively engaging with the complex issues at hand. "Ms. Bennett," he called out after she finished the call. She appeared in his doorway instantly. "Yes, Mr. Mitchell?" "That call with Davidson." He studied her carefully. "You're familiar with the entire merger proposal?" "I make it a point to understand everything that crosses your desk," she replied. "It helps me anticipate needs and handle situations more effectively." "That's well beyond your job description." "Is it?" She took a step into his office. "I thought my job was to make your life easier. That requires more than just managing your calendar." Her words hung in the air between them, carrying a weight he wasn't prepared to examine. Brandon moved behind his desk, needing the physical barrier. "You have an MBA?" "Yes." She didn't seem surprised by his knowledge. "From Columbia. Evening classes while working full-time. Why aren't you pursuing a management position?" Ashley's expression shifted subtly. "Because sometimes the best way to learn is to work closely with someone who's mastered their craft." Her eyes met his directly. "You built this company from nothing, Mr. Mitchell. That's the kind of excellence I want to understand." Her honesty was disarming. Brandon found himself gripping the edge of his desk, his knuckles white. And Legacy Corp couldn't offer that? Legacy Corp is all flesh, no substance. She smiled, but it held a sharp edge. They buy success. You create it. The pride her words stirred was dangerous, personal in a way he couldn't afford. The quarterly review meeting starts in 10 minutes. She accepted the dismissal gracefully, turning to leave. But at the door she paused. You know, Mr. Mitchell, not everyone is waiting for a chance to betray you. The words hit him like a physical blow. By the time he looked up, she was gone, leaving him alone with the uncomfortable truth she'd so casually exposed. The quarterly review dragged on, but Brandon barely heard his executive's presentations. His mind kept returning to Ashley's words, to the dangerous accuracy of her observation. How had she seen through him so easily? More importantly, why did it feel like his carefully constructed walls were developing hairline cracks? Late afternoon found him standing at his window, watching storm clouds gather over the city. The office had cleared out early, people eager to beat the approaching weather, but he remained, trying to make sense of the unfamiliar emotions disrupting his usual clarity. A flash of lightning illuminated the gathering darkness, followed by a low rumble of thunder. In its aftermath, he heard the soft click of heels approaching his office. The car service called, Ashley said from the doorway. They're running late due to the weather. Would you like me to find an alternative? Brandon turned to face her, ready to dismiss the concern. But the words died in his throat. She had let her hair down, the auburn waves catching the dim light. Against the backdrop of the stormy sky, she looked like something from a dream he didn't dare acknowledge. Mr. Mitchell? She prompted softly. It's fine, he managed. You should go. Beat the worst of the storm. I've already called a car for myself. She stepped further into his office, her presence filling the space in ways he couldn't ignore. I'll wait until your car arrives. That's not necessary. No, she agreed, meeting his gaze steadily. But I'm going to anyway. Another crack in his walls, small but significant. Brandon turned back to the window, watching the first heavy drops of rain hit the glass. Behind him, he could hear Ashley moving around his office, quietly organizing documents, her presence both soothing and unsettling. The storm intensified, sheets of rain obscuring the city lights. In the darkened glass, he could see their reflections. Him standing rigid at the window, her moving with graceful efficiency through his space. They looked like a scene from another life, one where he wasn't bound by the chains of his past. Lightning flashed again, closer this time, illuminating them both in stark white light. For a brief moment, their eyes met in the reflection. Brandon felt something shift in his chest, a recognition he couldn't suppress. The walls he'd built weren't just cracking, they were beginning to crumble. The Mitchell Tech Charity Gala was exactly the kind of event Brandon had successfully avoided for 7 years. But as chairman of the board, Richard Chen had been insistent. The company's new educational initiative needed its CEO present. Brandon adjusted his bow tie, scanning the elegant ballroom of the Plaza Hotel. Hundreds of New York's elite mingled. Beneath crystal chandeliers, their laughter and conversation creating a gentle hum that set his teeth on edge. He'd already calculated his minimum required stay. 90 minutes. Just enough time to make the necessary appearances without... Your speech is ready, Mr. Mitchell. He turned to find Ashley beside him, elegant in a deep burgundy gown that made his chest tighten unexpectedly. She held out a small tablet, but his eyes were drawn to the delicate curve of her shoulder, the way her hair fell in soft waves around her face. I've highlighted the key points, she continued, professional as ever. Though I doubt you'll need them. You know this initiative better than anyone. Brandon forced his attention to the tablet, ignoring the subtle scent of jasmine that seemed to surround her. You rewrote it. I took the liberty of adding more personal touches. She moved closer, pointing to specific passages. The story about your first computer programming class, the teacher who inspired you. It humanizes the message without compromising. Your authority. Her arm brushed his as she leaned in, and Brandon felt electricity shoot through him. He stepped back abruptly, nearly colliding with a passing waiter. Ashley's eyes flickered with something, hurt, understanding, before her professional mask slipped back into place. I should check on the presentation setup. Ms. Bennett. The words escaped before he could stop them. The speech, it's good. A small smile curved her lips. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. She turned and walked away, leaving him with the unsettling realization that he was watching her go. She's quite remarkable, isn't she? Brandon stiffened at the familiar voice. Turning, he found himself face to face with Victoria Reynolds, CEO of Legacy Corp, and the woman who had tried to destroy him 7 years ago. Victoria. His voice was arctic. I wasn't aware Legacy Corp was on the guest list. Oh, darling. She smiled, all perfect teeth and calculated charm. It's a charity event, and I'm so invested in education. Her eyes drifted to where Ashley had disappeared into the crowd. Your new assistant seems capable, though I'm surprised she chose Mitchell Tech over our offer. Brandon's jaw clenched. Your corporate espionage tactics haven't improved with age. Always so suspicious. Victoria stepped closer, lowering her voice. Tell me, does she know about us? About what really happened 7 years ago? There is no us, Brandon bit out. And what happened was you trying to steal company secrets through personal manipulation. A mistake I won't repeat. Victoria's laugh was melodic, designed to draw attention. Oh, Brandon, still so wounded, it makes me wonder. Her eyes gleamed with malice. Does she know why you never let anyone close? Why the great Brandon Mitchell flinches from a simple touch? Before Brandon could respond, Ashley materialized at his side. Mr. Mitchell, I apologize for interrupting, but the board members are waiting for your pre-speech briefing. Her timing was too perfect to be coincidental. Brandon saw the flash of frustration cross Victoria's face and felt a surge of something dangerously close to gratitude. Ms. Reynolds. Ashley's smile was professional but held an edge of steel. I believe Mr. Davidson was looking for you. Something about Legacy Corp's recent stock performance? Victoria's smile tightened. With a final meaningful look at Brandon, she glided away into the crowd. The board isn't waiting, Brandon said quietly. No, Ashley admitted. But you looked like you needed an exit strategy. He studied her face, searching for signs of curiosity about the exchange she'd witnessed, but her expression revealed nothing except calm support. Victoria Reynolds, she continued, her voice carefully neutral. Known for aggressive corporate takeover attempts and using personal relationships for business advantage, she tried to acquire Mitchell Tech 7 years ago through unconventional means. Brandon felt his chest constrict. You've done your research. It's public record. Ashley met his gaze steadily. The failed takeover attempt, the lawsuit, the settlement, everything except the personal details, those belong to you. The understanding in her voice was almost too much to bear. Brandon turned away, staring out at the glittering crowd. The speech. How long until? 20 minutes. She didn't push, didn't ask the questions he could see burning in her eyes. Instead, she simply added, I'll make sure you're not disturbed until then. She started to move away, but Brandon caught her arm. The contact sent shocks through his system, but he forced himself to hold on. Ashley. It was the first time he'd used her first name. Her eyes widened slightly, and he felt her pulse jump under his fingers. Thank you, he said softly. The moment stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words. Then Ashley gently extracted her arm from his grip, her fingers brushing his as she pulled away. Always, Mr. Mitchell. The speech went flawlessly, just as she'd promised. Brandon delivered her carefully crafted words with authority, watching as the crowd responded exactly as she'd predicted. When he announced the initiative's goal, bringing advanced technology education to underprivileged schools, the applause was genuine and enthusiastic. Later, as the evening wound down, Brandon found himself on the hotel's terrace, loosening his bow tie as he looked out over Central Park. The spring air was cool, carrying the scent of approaching rain. "You should be pleased." Ashley's voice came from behind him. The initiative raised twice its target amount. Brandon didn't turn around. "You're still here. Someone has to handle the final details." She moved to stand beside him at the railing. "Besides, I wanted to make sure you were okay after—" "Victoria Reynolds is a shark who mistook personal information for business leverage," he cut her off. "It was a long time ago. 7 years. Ashley's voice was soft. "Is that why you keep everyone at arm's length? Why you never—" "Ms. Bennett." His tone carried a warning. But for the first time, she didn't back down. "You can't live your whole life afraid of being hurt again." "I'm not afraid." The words came out sharper than intended. "I'm careful, there's a difference." "Is there?" She turned to face him fully. "Because from where I stand, it looks a lot like fear, and it's costing you more than you realize." Brandon felt his carefully maintained control slipping. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" Her eyes searched his face. "I see how you flinch from every casual touch, how you hold yourself apart even in a room full of people who respect you, how you've built this amazing company but won't let yourself enjoy any of it." "Stop." His voice was rough. "You're not just careful, Mr. Mitchell, you're hiding. And the worst part is, you're so good at it that you've convinced yourself it's normal." "Enough." He turned on her, anger and something else, something dangerous, coursing through him. "You work for me, Ms. Bennett. That's all. Don't presume to understand things you know nothing about." The hurt that flashed across her face made him want to take the words back immediately. But Ashley straightened her spine, her own anger rising to match his. "You're right. I'm just your employee. How presumptuous of me to care about your happiness." She turned to leave, her heels clicking sharply on the terrace stones. But this time, Brandon was the one who caught her arm. "Ashley, wait." She stopped but didn't turn around. He could feel her trembling slightly under his hand. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "You didn't deserve that." Slowly, she turned to face him. They were standing too close now, his hand still on her arm, her face tilted up to his. A drop of rain fell, then another, but neither of them moved. "Why did you really choose Mitchell, Tech?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Ashley's eyes met his, full of emotions he wasn't ready to name. "Because some people are worth the risk of getting hurt." The words hung between them as the rain began to fall in earnest. Brandon felt his walls crumbling, felt himself leaning closer, drawn by something stronger than his carefully constructed rules. A crash of thunder broke the spell. They jumped apart as other guests began rushing inside to escape the storm. Ashley stepped back, smoothing her dress with trembling hands. "Good night, Mr. Mitchell," she whispered, then disappeared into the crowd, leaving Brandon alone in the rain, his carefully ordered world falling apart around him. The week following the gala had been an exercise in careful avoidance. Brandon buried himself in work, taking early morning meetings and late conference calls, anything to minimize his direct interactions with Ashley. But her presence remained inescapable. In the perfectly prepared reports on his desk, in the subtle scent of jasmine that lingered in his office after she'd dropped off documents, in the way his skin still tingled when he remembered her words, on the rain-soaked terrace. "Some people are worth the risk of getting hurt." The words haunted him, challenging everything he'd built his life around for the past 7 years. He caught himself watching her through the glass partition, noting how she tucked her hair behind her ear when concentrating, how her fingers danced across the keyboard with graceful efficiency, how His phone buzzed, breaking his dangerous train of thought. A message from Richard Chen made his blood run cold. Emergency board meeting called. Victoria Reynolds just bought 5% of Mitchell Tech shares through a shell company. She's making a play. Brandon's fingers clenched around the phone. Victoria's appearance at the gala hadn't been a coincidence. It was reconnaissance. She'd been planning this all along. "Ms. Bennett," he called out, his voice tight with controlled anger. Ashley appeared in his doorway immediately, notepad in hand. If she felt any awkwardness from their near moment at the gala, she hit it perfectly. Yes, Mr. Mitchell? Cancel everything for the next 2 hours. Emergency board meeting. She was already moving, fingers flying over her tablet. Done. Should I prepare the conference room? No, this needs to be completely secure. My private office only. He stood, pacing to the window. And I need the Morrison acquisition files from last year, all of them. The ones in secure storage? At his nod, she continued, I'll need your authorization code. Brandon turned, meeting her eyes for the first time in days. I trust you. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning beyond simple professional confidence. Ashley's breath caught slightly, but her voice remained steady. I'll have everything ready in 10 minutes. As board members began arriving, Brandon watched Ashley coordinate their entry with military precision. She had coffee waiting, documents prepared, and somehow managed to defuse 3 potential arguments before they reached his office door. Victoria Reynolds arrived last, her red-soled heels clicking against the marble floor like bullets. Ashley, darling, she purred. That dress is lovely. Neiman Marcus, isn't it? Amazing what one can afford on a modest salary. Brandon saw Ashley's spine stiffen, but her smile remained professional. Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. The board is waiting. The meeting was exactly the bloodbath Brandon had expected. Victoria laid out her plans with surgical precision. She wanted a seat on the board, claiming her share purchase gave her the right to protect her investment. This is a hostile takeover attempt, Brandon stated flatly, just like 7 years ago. Victoria's laugh was like breaking glass. Oh, Brandon, still so paranoid, I simply see potential being wasted. Her eyes flickered to the door where Ashley stood, taking notes. You always did have a tendency to keep valuable assets at arm's length. The double meaning made Brandon's jaw clench. Your previous attempt failed. This one will too. We'll see. Victoria stood, smoothing her skirt. Things are different now, you're different. She leaned closer, whispering, more vulnerable. After she left, the board descended into chaos. Arguments about stock prices and defensive strategies filled the air, but Brandon barely heard them. His mind was racing, calculating moves and countermoves. If I may? Ashley's voice cut through the noise. All eyes turned to her, standing quietly by the door. The Morrison acquisition files might be relevant here. Brandon nodded for her to continue, watching as she distributed documents with precise efficiency. Last year's hostile takeover attempt of Morrison Tech failed because of an overlooked detail in their corporate structure. Her voice was clear and confident. A similar provision exists in Mitchell Tech's bylaws, drafted after the previous attempt by Legacy Corp. The board members leafed through the documents as Ashley outlined the legal framework that would make Victoria's play significantly more difficult. Her understanding of corporate law and Mitchell Tech's history was impressive, and somewhat suspicious. After the board members filed out armed with new strategies and renewed confidence, Brandon turned to Ashley. How did you know about that bylaw? I told you I make it my business to understand everything about this company. She met his gaze steadily, including its vulnerabilities. Why? Because someone needs to help you protect what you've built. She stepped closer, her voice softening. Even from yourself. Brandon felt the familiar urge to step back, to maintain his safe distance, but something kept him rooted in place. Victoria's right about one thing. I am vulnerable. No. Ashley shook her head. You're stronger than you realize. You just need to stop letting her live rent-free in your head. A harsh laugh escaped him. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple, but it is necessary. She took another step forward. What happened 7 years ago? The question he'd been dreading. Brandon turned away, moving to the window. She was my CFO. We were involved. I trusted her with everything. My company, my heart. His voice turned bitter. She used that trust to try to orchestrate a takeover. stealing proprietary technology in the process. But you stopped her. At a cost. He pressed his forehead against the cool glass. I learned that mixing personal feelings with business is a guarantee of disaster. Is that what this is? Ashley's voice was closer now. Business? Brandon turned to find her standing directly behind him, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes. Ashley, tell me you don't feel this. Her voice was barely a whisper. Tell me I'm imagining the way you look at me when you think I can't see. Tell me your hands don't shake every time we accidentally touch. Stop. But the word had no force behind it. I'm not Victoria. She reached up, her fingers hovering near his face but not quite touching. And you're not the same man you were 7 years ago. Brandon caught her wrist before her hand could make contact. This can't happen. Why? Because I can't. He struggled to find the words. I can't be that vulnerable again. But you already are. Her pulse raced under his fingers. The only difference is whether you're going to let fear win. A knock at the door made them jump apart. Richard Chen stood in the doorway, his expression apologetic. Brandon, the legal team needs your input. On the defensive strategy. Ashley stepped back, smoothing her skirt. I'll get the files ready. She moved to leave but paused at the door. Mr. Mitchell? Sometimes the biggest risk is never taking one at all. Long after she'd gone, Brandon stood at his window, watching the city lights flicker to life as dusk settled over Manhattan. His carefully constructed walls were crumbling, and for the first time in 7 years he wasn't sure he wanted to rebuild them. But as Victoria's words echoed in his mind, more vulnerable, he wondered if letting those walls fall would cost him everything he'd spent years protecting. The answer, he feared, would come sooner than he was ready for. The headlines splashed across every major financial news outlet made Brandon's blood boil. Legacy Corp CEO claims Mitchell Tech hiding financial irregularities. Victoria's move was calculated, designed to drive down stock prices and create shareholder panic. It was working. 3 major investors have already called, Ashley reported, entering his office with a stack of urgent messages. The PR team is drafting a response, but the damage is already done. Brandon's voice was ice cold. He stood at his window watching rain slash against the glass. She's playing the same game. Create doubt, shake confidence, then swoop in as the savior. It's different this time. Ashley moved to stand beside him, her reflection joining his in the rain-streaked window. You're different. Brandon turned to face her, struck by how steady she remained in the midst of chaos. For the past week, as Victoria's attacks escalated, Ashley had been his anchor, anticipating needs, coordinating responses, keeping him focused when anger threatened to cloud his judgment. The board wants an emergency session, she continued. I've scheduled it for... The office door burst open. Victoria Reynolds strode in, flanked by 2 men in expensive suits. Brandon, darling. Her smile was razor sharp. I hope you don't mind the intrusion, but my lawyers insisted on delivering this in person. She held out a thick envelope. Ashley moved to intercept it, but Brandon waved her off. Let me guess. A formal demand for a complete audit? Among other things. Victoria's eyes gleamed. We're also requesting all communication records between you and key employees over the past 3 months. Particularly, her gaze slid to Ashley. Your executive assistant. Brandon felt his chest tighten. Get out. Now. Victoria perched on the edge of his desk. Is that any way to treat a concerned shareholder? Besides, she lowered her voice. We wouldn't want anyone questioning the nature of certain relationships, would we? The implied threat hung in the air. Brandon's fingers clenched around the envelope, his knuckles white. Ms. Reynolds. Ashley's voice cut through the tension. Your concern for corporate governance is admirable, but perhaps you should focus on Legacy Corp's own interesting accounting practices. Victoria's head snapped around. Excuse me? The Anderson merger you attempted last quarter. Ashley's smile was pure steel. The numbers didn't quite add up, did they? Something about offshore holdings and creative tax structures? Brandon watched Victoria's face pale slightly. How did you? I make it my business to understand potential threats to this company. Ashley's voice remained professionally pleasant. The SEC might find those documents fascinating. Shall I have them forwarded over? Victoria stood slowly, her composure cracking. You're playing a dangerous game, little girl. No games, Ms. Reynolds, just facts. Ashley held her ground. Now, unless you have a court order, this meeting is over. Security will escort you out. As if on cue, 2 security officers appeared in the doorway. Victoria's lawyers exchanged nervous glances. This isn't over, Victoria hissed as she gathered her things. At the door, she turned back. She's good, Brandon. Almost as good as I was. I wonder if she'll betray you the same way. After they left, silence filled the office. Brandon stared at Ashley, seeing her in a new light. The Anderson merger documents, how? I have contacts at the SEC. She met his gaze steadily. I told you I researched potential threats. When? The night you hired me. She took a deep breath. I knew Victoria would try something eventually. I wanted to be prepared. Brandon moved closer, studying her face. Why? You know why. Her voice softened. The same reason I took this job. The same reason I stay late every night and come in early every morning. The same reason I... The office phone buzzed, interrupting whatever she was about to say. Mr. Mitchell, the board is assembling in the conference room. Ashley stepped back, professional mask sliding back into place. We should go. Wait. Brandon caught her arm. What you did just now. I protected the company. She tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. Look at me. Slowly, she raised her eyes to his. The emotions he saw there made his chest ache. You protected me, he said softly. Same thing. Her voice was barely a whisper. They stood frozen, the air between them electric. Brandon felt his carefully constructed walls crumbling. She had just faced down his worst nightmare, defended him with a fierceness that both thrilled and terrified him. And now she was looking at him like he was worth fighting for. His free hand moved of its own accord, fingers brushing her cheek. Ashley's breath caught, her eyes widening. The professional distance they'd maintained was evaporating, replaced by something dangerous and inevitable. Brandon, she whispered, and the sound of his first name on her lips broke something inside him. He pulled her closer, his other hand sliding into her hair. Ashley's fingers gripped his lapels, neither pushing away nor pulling closer, just holding on as the moment balanced on a knife's edge. Tell me to stop, he breathed against her lips. I can't. Her voice trembled. I don't want to. The phone buzzed again, more insistent this time. Mr. Mitchell, the board is waiting. Reality crashed back in. Brandon jerked away as if burned, stumbling back against his desk. Ashley pressed a hand to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock at what had almost happened. We should... She gestured vaguely toward the door, her composure shattered. Go. His voice was rough. I'll be there. In a minute. She practically fled the office, leaving Brandon alone with the wreckage of his professional boundaries. He pressed his forehead against the cool window, trying to regain control. But control, he was beginning to realize, was an illusion. His carefully ordered world was spinning off its axis, and at the center of that chaos was Ashley Bennett, the woman who had just saved his company and nearly shattered his resolve in the same hour. The board meeting waited, and with it the next round of Victoria's attacks. But as Brandon straightened his tie and gathered his thoughts, he knew the real battle wasn't with his old enemy. It was with his own heart, which was finally awakening from its 7-year slumber, demanding to be heard. And he wasn't sure he could silence it anymore. The Mitchell Tech offices buzzed with nervous energy. Victoria's accusations had sent the stock price tumbling and rumors flew through the corridors like autumn leaves in a storm. But Brandon Mitchell's private office remained eerily quiet, a pocket of stillness in the chaos. He sat at his desk, staring at the empty chair across from him, where Ashley usually took notes during their morning briefings. But she hadn't come in today. Instead, a terse email had arrived. Taking a personal day, all meetings rescheduled, files on your desk. The distance felt both necessary and unbearable. Yesterday's near kiss haunted him, the softness of her, hair under his fingers, the way she'd whispered his name. The electric moment before reality intervened. He'd spent the night pacing his penthouse, trying to convince himself it was better this way. Distance was safe. Distance was... His office door opened, and Richard Chen walked in without knocking. "We have a problem." Brandon straightened, grateful for the distraction. "Victoria?" "No." Richard dropped a tabloid on his desk. "This." The headline made Brandon's blood freeze. "Mitchell Tech CEO's secret romance with assistant." Below was a grainy photo of him and Ashley from yesterday, standing close together in his office. The angle made their professional interaction look intimate, damning. "It gets worse." Richard pulled up a news site on his tablet. "Financial, blogs are picking up the story. They're connecting it to Victoria's accusations, suggesting personal relationships might be compromising business decisions." Brandon's jaw clenched. "It's not true." "Isn't it?" Richard's voice was gentle. "Brandon, I've known you for 15 years. I've never seen you look at anyone the way you look at her." "That's not..." Brandon stopped, unable to finish the lie. "It doesn't matter. Nothing's happened." "But something almost did." Richard sat down. "Yesterday in your office, the security footage..." "You watched the security footage?" "I had to. Victoria's lawyers requested it this morning." Brandon felt the walls closing in. They can and they will." Richard leaned forward. "Listen to me. Victoria's playing a different game this time. She's not just after the company. She wants to destroy you personally. And she's using Ashley to do it." The truth of those words hit Brandon like a physical blow. He stood, moving to the window where he'd almost kissed Ashley yesterday. "What's the damage?" 3 board members have expressed concerns. Shareholders are nervous. The timing with Victoria's accusations. Richard sighed. "It looks bad." "Fix it." "How?" Brandon turned, his expression hard. "Issue a statement. Deny any impropriety, and..." His voice caught. "Terminate Ms. Bennett's employment." Richard stared at him. "You can't be serious." "It's the cleanest solution. It's the coward solution." Richard stood. "And it won't work. Victoria will just use it as proof that there was something to hide." Before Brandon could respond, his phone buzzed. A message from Ashley made his heart stop. "We need to talk. Meet me at Central Park, the bench by the fountain, 1 hour." Richard saw the message over his shoulder. "Go." "I can't." "Brandon." Richard's voice was firm. "For 7 years I've watched you build walls around yourself, and for the first time someone's gotten through them. Don't throw that away because you're scared." "I'm not scared." The lie tasted bitter. "I'm being practical." "No, you're being a coward." Richard headed for the door. "I'll handle the press for now, but you need to figure out what matters more, your fear or your heart." An hour later, Brandon found himself walking through Central Park, his polished Oxfords incongruous against the leaf-strewn path. He spotted Ashley sitting on the bench, wrapped in a cream-colored coat, her hair loose in the autumn wind. She looked up as he approached, and the sadness in her eyes made his chest ache. "I saw the articles," she said softly. Brandon sat beside her, maintaining careful distance. "It's being handled." "By firing me?" He turned sharply. "How did you..." "Richard called. He thought I should know what you were considering." She smiled sadly. "He's a good friend. To both of us." "Ashley..." "No, let me finish." She turned, to face him fully. I know you're scared. I know Victoria hurt you in ways that go beyond business. But I am not her. I know that. Do you? She reached for his hand and he let her take it, her touch sending electricity through him. Because right now you're letting her win. You're letting what she did 7 years ago dictate your choices today. Brandon stared at their joined hands. The company. This isn't about the company. Ashley's voice was fierce. This is about you being too afraid to admit that sometimes walls need to come down. And if they do? He met her eyes. What then? Then you find out that not everyone is waiting to hurt you. She squeezed his hand. That some people just want to love you. The word hung between them, heavy with meaning. Brandon felt something crack inside his chest. I can't lose the company. It's all I have. That's not true. Ashley reached up, touching his face. This time he didn't pull away. You have me, if you want me. A jogger passed by, and Brandon became acutely aware of their public location, but for once he didn't care who might see. It's not that simple. It could be. She stood, pulling him up with her. Come with me. She led him through the park to a small coffee cart tucked away near the lake. The elderly vendor smiled in recognition. Ah, Miss Ashley. The usual? 2 today, Marco. She turned to Brandon. I come here every morning before work. It's where I've gotten coffee for you for the past 3 months. Brandon frowned. But the coffee in my office is from here. Not the fancy Brazilian roast everyone assumes you insist on. She accepted 2 cups from Marco. You never noticed, did you, that it wasn't from your usual place? No, he admitted, taking the cup she offered. It just tasted right. Because sometimes the best things in life aren't about expensive brands or careful control. She sipped her coffee, watching him over the rim. Sometimes they're about taking a chance on something unexpected. Brandon tasted the coffee. Rich, smooth, perfect. Just like every morning for the past 3 months. Why did you really come to work for me? Because I saw something in you that you'd forgotten existed. She stepped closer. The capacity to care, to feel, to love. Ashley. His voice was rough. If we do this, if we cross this line, there's no going back. Good. She set down her coffee cup. Because I'm tired of watching you run from happiness. A breeze stirred the fallen leaves around their feet, and Brandon realized they were hidden from view by a cluster of trees. In this moment, they weren't CEO and executive assistant. They were just a man and a woman, standing on the edge of something life-changing. Victoria will use this against us, he warned. Let her try. Ashley's eyes blazed. I'm not afraid of her. I'm only afraid of watching you choose loneliness because it feels safer than love. The last of Brandon's resistance crumbled. He pulled her close, one hand tangling in her hair. I don't deserve you. Let me decide that. She smiled up at him. Now, are you going to kiss me, or do I have to? He silenced her with his lips, pouring 7 years of locked-away emotion into the kiss. Ashley melted against him, her arms wrapping around his neck as she kissed him back with equal fervor. The world fell away. No Victoria, no scandal, no company crisis. Just this moment, this woman, this feeling of finally coming home. When they broke apart, Ashley's eyes were shining. See? The world didn't end. Brandon pressed his forehead to hers, laughing softly. No, but it's definitely changed. For the better. She straightened his tie. Now shall we go face the music? He caught her hand, holding it against his chest. Together? Together. She smiled. After all, I have some ideas about handling Victoria that you might find interesting. Looking at her, brilliant, fierce, and somehow his, Brandon felt something he hadn't experienced in 7 years. Hope. The storm wasn't over. In fact, it was probably just beginning. But for the first time, he wasn't facing it alone behind his walls. He was facing it with her. The Mitchell Tech boardroom crackled with tension. Brandon stood at the head of the long mahogany table, his expression unreadable as he faced the assembled board members. Ashley sat near the back of the room, tablet in hand, her professional mask firmly in place despite the whispers and sidelong glances. "The allegations in the press are a distraction," Brandon stated, his voice steady. "One orchestrated by Legacy Corp to destabilize shareholder confidence. Our focus should be on what?" Victoria Reynolds' voice cut through the room as she swept in, fashionably late. "On hiding the fact that you're repeating old patterns? Mixing business with pleasure?" Brandon's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, Richard Chen spoke up. "Ms. Reynolds, this is a closed board meeting. You don't have speaking privileges." "Oh, but I think the board needs to hear this." Victoria smiled, shark-like. 7 years ago, Brandon's personal involvement with me nearly cost this company everything. And now?" She gestured toward Ashley. "History repeats itself." "That's enough." Brandon's voice was ice. "Is it?" Victoria produced a folder. "Because I have proof that certain sensitive company information has been accessed from Ms. Bennett's computer." Late at night, when she's alone in the office with our dear CEO, the board members stirred uncomfortably. Ashley felt their eyes on her, judging, assuming. "If you have accusations, make them formally," Brandon said. "Otherwise, fine." Victoria slapped the folder on the table. "I move for an immediate suspension of both Mr. Mitchell and Ms. Bennett pending a full investigation. Given the previous incident 7 years ago, we can't risk—" "Actually," Ashley's voice rang out clear and strong as she stood, "we can't risk letting you manipulate this situation any further." All eyes turned to her. Brandon gave a slight shake of his head, but Ashley continued. "The files accessed from my computer?" She smiled. "Were documents related to Legacy Corp's questionable trading practices, specifically evidence that Ms. Reynolds has been orchestrating artificial stock price fluctuations to facilitate this very takeover attempt." Victoria's face paled. "You're lying." "Am I?" Ashley moved to the front of the room, connecting her tablet to the display screen. "These trading patterns show systematic manipulation dating back 3 months. The SEC is very interested in them." Charts and graphs appeared on the screen, damning in their clarity. The board members leaned forward, murmuring among themselves. "This is absurd," Victoria sputtered. "You can't possibly have proof?" Ashley pulled up another document. "Like recordings of your meetings with offshore investors? Or perhaps emails discussing how to leverage personal relationships to destabilize Mitchell Tech's leadership?" Brandon watched in amazement as Ashley systematically dismantled Victoria's scheme, piece by piece. She had clearly been building this case for months, gathering evidence, connecting dots. "As for my relationship with Mr. Mitchell," Ashley continued, her voice softer but no less firm, "yes, it exists. We've chosen not to hide it. Because unlike some people, we understand the difference between using personal relationships for manipulation and building them on trust." Victoria's composure cracked. "You little—" "Ms. Reynolds," Richard interrupted smoothly, "I believe it's time for you to leave, and expect contact from our legal team." After Victoria stormed out, the boardroom erupted in discussion. Brandon caught Ashley's eye across the chaos, his heart swelling with pride and something deeper. Hours later, they stood in his office as the sun set over Manhattan. The board had voted overwhelmingly to support Brandon's leadership and initiate legal action against Victoria. The crisis wasn't over, but the worst had passed. "You've been planning this for months," Brandon said softly, watching Ashley organize files on his desk. "Since the day I started." She looked up at him. "I knew what she did to you. I wasn't going to let her do it again." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you needed to make your choice about us without knowing." She moved closer. "It had to be about feelings, not strategy." Brandon caught her hand, pulling her to him. "I don't deserve you." "You keep saying that." She smiled up at him. "But you're wrong. You deserve everything. Love, trust, happiness. You just needed someone to remind you. He kissed her then, soft and deep, pouring all his gratitude and love into the gesture. When they broke apart, Ashley's eyes were shining. There will be talk, he warned. The press, the industry. Let them talk. She straightened his tie. We have nothing to hide. A knock at the door made them step apart. Richard entered, looking apologetic. Sorry to interrupt, but you both need to see this. He handed them his tablet. On the screen was an article from a major business publication. Mitchell Tech CEO and assistant, a modern love story. The piece was surprisingly positive, painting their relationship as a redemption arc. The frozen CEO learning to trust again, the brilliant assistant who saw past his walls. Public sentiment is shifting, Richard said. Victoria's manipulation is becoming clear and people love a good romance. Brandon shook his head, amazed. You planned this too? Not exactly. Ashley took his hand. But I knew that truth would win over manipulation, just like love wins over fear. Looking at her, brilliant, fierce, and unashamedly his, Brandon felt the last of his doubts melt away. Move in with me. Ashley blinked. What? Move in with me, he repeated, more confident now. No more hiding, no more careful distances. I want to wake up with you every morning, fall asleep with you every night. Brandon. Her voice wavered. Are you sure? The press will. I don't care. He pulled her close. 7 years of caring about appearances, about what people might think. I'm done. I love you, Ashley Bennett. Move in with me. Richard quietly slipped out, closing the door behind him. Ashley looked up at Brandon, tears shining in her eyes. Yes, she whispered. Yes to all of it. The kiss they shared was a promise, a beginning. Outside the office windows, Manhattan glittered in the gathering dusk, a witness to walls finally crumbling, to love finally winning over fear. But in Victoria's office across town, a different scene played out. She sat in darkness, staring at her computer screen where another set of documents waited, documents that could change everything. Oh, Brandon, she whispered, reaching for her phone. You should have learned the first time. Love makes you weak, and I'm not done yet. The storm wasn't over. In fact, the worst was yet to come. But this time, Brandon wasn't facing it alone behind his walls. He was facing it with the woman who had taught him that love wasn't weakness. It was the greatest strength of all. Dawn light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Brandon's penthouse, painting the bedroom in soft gold. He watched Ashley sleep beside him, her auburn hair spread across his pillow, her face peaceful in the early morning light. 3 weeks of waking up next to her hadn't dulled the wonder of these moments. His phone buzzed softly. Brandon slipped out of bed, careful not to wake her, and padded to the kitchen. Richard's message made his blood run cold. Emergency. Turn on the news. Now. The television flickered to life and Brandon's world tilted on its axis. Victoria Reynolds stood at a press podium, her expression grave. It pains me to reveal this, she was saying, but evidence has emerged of systematic fraud at Mitchell Tech, orchestrated by none other than Ashley Bennett, with CEO Brandon Mitchell's knowledge and protection. Ashley appeared in the kitchen, doorway wrapping her silk robe tighter. Brandon, what's... She stopped as Victoria's voice filled the room. Documents show Ms. Bennett has been manipulating financial records since her arrival at Mitchell Tech, using her personal relationship with Mr. Mitchell as cover for her activities. Brandon muted the TV, turning to Ashley. Her face had gone pale. It's not true, she whispered. I know. He pulled her into his arms. She's desperate. This is her last play. Ashley's phone rang, Richard Chen. She put it on speaker. Victoria's lawyers just filed a formal complaint with the SEC, Richard reported. They're claiming Ashley used her position to hide financial irregularities, suggesting her relationship with Brandon was part of the cover-up. That's ridiculous, Brandon snapped. The board cleared us weeks ago. This is different. Richard's voice was grim. Victoria's produced documents, emails, financial records, all pointing to Ashley. They look real. Ashley pulled away from Brandon, her expression haunted. She's using my own strategy against us, making it personal to destroy the professional. Brandon's jaw clenched. How bad? The SEC is opening an investigation. They'll want to interview both of you today. Richard paused. And the board is calling for Ashley's immediate suspension. The words hit like physical blows. Ashley sank into a kitchen chair, her hands trembling. She's going to destroy everything you've built. No. Brandon knelt before her, taking her hands. She's trying to destroy us. The company is just collateral damage to her now. What do we do? Brandon's phone buzzed again. A message. From Victoria herself. My office. 1 hour. Come alone, or the next documents I release will ensure Ashley never works in this industry again. He showed the message to Ashley, watching her face pale further. It's a trap, she said softly. Of course it is. He stood, decision made. But I'm going. Brandon, no. Listen to me. He pulled her up, holding her face between his hands. 7 years ago, I let her manipulate me through fear. I lost everything that mattered because I was afraid. I won't make that mistake. Again. Tears slipped down Ashley's cheeks. She'll try to destroy you. Let her try. He kissed her softly. I'm not the same man I was 7 years ago. Thanks to you. An hour later, Brandon stood in Victoria's corner office at Legacy Corp, staring at the woman who had once broken his heart and was now trying to break his life. I have to admit, Victoria purred. She's good. Better than I was. Getting you to fall in love, making it look so real. It is real. Brandon's voice was steel. That's what you never understood, Victoria. Real love isn't about manipulation or power. Oh, please, she laughed. Look at these. She spread documents across her desk. Email trails showing Ashley accessing confidential files. Financial records altered under her login. All the evidence the SEC needs to what? Brandon moved closer. To prove that you're still obsessed with destroying me? That you'd forge documents and risk everything just to hurt me again? Victoria's smile faltered. Forge? I have proof. No. Brandon pulled out his phone, playing a recording. Victoria's voice filled the room. Make sure the timestamps match her login records. I want these forgeries perfect. The color drained from Victoria's face. How did you really think Ashley was the only one gathering evidence? Brandon's smile was cold. We've been recording your conversations for months. Every meeting with your hackers, every call about forged documents. The SEC has it all. You're bluffing. Am I? He moved to the door. Check your stock price. Victoria, Richard is holding a press conference right now, revealing everything. It's over. You can't do this to me. She grabbed his arm. Brandon, please, we could still. Still what? He pulled free. Go back to when you tried to steal my company through my heart. When you taught me that love was weakness. He shook his head. You did me a favor, Victoria. You taught me what love isn't, so I could recognize it when it was real. Her face contorted with rage. She'll leave you too. Everyone does. No. Brandon opened the door. She won't. Because, unlike you, Ashley's love isn't about power or control. It's about making me stronger, better. About teaching me that real love isn't weakness. It's the greatest strength I've ever known. He left her there, surrounded by her forged documents and failed schemes. In the lobby, Ashley waited with Richard, both watching live coverage of Legacy Corp's stock price plummeting as the truth emerged. Ashley flew into his arms. I was so worried. I know. He held her tight. But I meant what I said this morning. I'm not the same man I was 7 years ago. I'm not afraid anymore. Richard cleared his throat. The SEC wants to speak with both of you, to clear everything up officially. Of course. Brandon kept his arm around Ashley. Together? She smiled up at him, love shining in her eyes. Always. As they left Legacy Corp, Brandon felt lighter than he had in years. Victoria's poison had finally lost its power over him, washed away by something stronger, real, unshakable love. But in her office, high above, Victoria stared at her computer screen, a strange smile playing on her lips. Because what Brandon didn't know, what no one knew, was that she had one last card to play. And this one would test not just Brandon's love for Ashley, but Ashley's love for him. Because sometimes the deadliest poison wasn't in what people did to you. It was in the secrets they kept. And Ashley Bennett had a secret that could destroy everything. The package arrived at Mitchell Tech on a sunny Tuesday morning, addressed to Brandon Mitchell in Victoria's elegant handwriting. Inside was a single USB drive and a note. Before you marry her, you should know the truth. Brandon stared at the drive on his desk, his stomach churning. The ring box in his jacket pocket felt suddenly heavy. He'd planned to propose to Ashley tonight, after their celebration dinner for Victoria's indictment. His finger hovered over the intercom. Ashley would be at her desk, probably reviewing the press statements about Legacy Corp's collapse. He could ask her to come in, show her the drive, face whatever this was together. Instead, he plugged it into his laptop. The files loaded, and Brandon's world stopped turning. Photos, documents, emails, all showing Ashley in meetings with Victoria Reynolds, not recent meetings. Meetings from 8 months ago before Ashley ever came to Mitchell Tech. His hands shook as he opened an email chain. The plan is set, Victoria wrote. Get close to him. Make him trust you. When the time comes, we'll use that trust to take everything. Ashley's response made his blood run cold. I'll handle Brandon Mitchell. Just keep your end of the deal. The timestamp was 2 weeks before Ashley applied to Mitchell Tech. Brandon's chest constricted as more emails filled his screen. Detailed discussions about his habits, his preferences, his vulnerabilities. Ashley had studied him, planned her approach, known exactly how to. The office door opened. Brandon? Richard said you got a package from Victoria. He looked up to find Ashley in the doorway, beautiful in a cream silk blouse and pencil skirt. The woman he loved. The woman who had. When did you first meet? Victoria Reynolds? His voice was deadly quiet. Ashley's face paled. What? 8 months ago? He turned his laptop, showing her the photos. When you were planning how to infiltrate my company, my life? Brandon. She stepped forward, then stopped as he held up a hand. Don't. His voice cracked. Just tell me the truth, for once. Ashley sank into a chair, tears filling her eyes. Yes, I met with Victoria before I came here, but it's not what you think. Really? Anger made his voice shake. Because these emails make it pretty clear. You studied me, planned everything. The coffee cart, the late nights, knowing exactly how to break down my walls. No! Ashley stood, moving toward him. Yes, I met with her. Yes, I agreed to her plan. But not to hurt you. Then why? To protect you. The words burst from her. I was working as a corporate investigator looking into Victoria's activities for another company. When I discovered her plan to destroy you, I couldn't let it happen. Brandon's heart pounded. So you what, decided to play her game? I decided to beat her at it. Ashley wiped tears from her cheeks. I made her think I was on her side while gathering evidence against her. Every meeting, every email, it was all documented and sent to the SEC. And us? His voice was raw. Was that part of the plan too? No. She moved closer. And this time he didn't stop her. Falling in love with you was never part of any plan. It just happened. And it terrified me. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was afraid. Her voice broke. Afraid you wouldn't trust my feelings were real. Afraid you'd think everything was a lie, like you do now. Brandon stood, putting distance between them. How can I believe you? How do I know this isn't just another manipulation? Because I could have helped Victoria destroy you a dozen times over. Ashley's voice strengthened. Instead, I helped you stop her. I fought for you, protected you, loved you, while lying to me. To protect you. She stepped forward. Brandon, look at me. Really look at me. Everything we've shared, everything we've built, it's real. I love you. That's the only truth that matters. He turned to the window, his reflection showing a man torn between love and betrayal. I need time. Brandon, please. Just go. He closed his eyes. I need to think. Ashley's soft footsteps moved toward the door, then stopped. You know what's ironic? Her voice was barely a whisper. I did all this because I saw how Victoria's betrayal haunted you. I wanted to protect you from ever feeling that pain again. And instead, the door closed softly behind her. Brandon stood at the window for hours, watching the sun arc across the Manhattan skyline. The ring box burned in his pocket, a reminder of dreams now tainted by doubt. His phone buzzed. Richard Chen, just got the full SEC report. You need to see this. 20 minutes later, Brandon sat in Richard's office, staring at surveillance photos, phone records, and email chains that painted a very different picture from Victoria's carefully curated evidence. Ashley was working with federal investigators, Richard explained. She traced Victoria's corruption back 3 years, documenting everything. Her collaboration with Victoria was sanctioned by the SEC as part of their investigation. Brandon's hands shook as he read the official reports. Why didn't they tell me? They couldn't. It would have compromised the investigation. Richard leaned forward. Brandon, everything Ashley did was to protect you and the company. She risked her life, her career, her heart, all to stop Victoria from destroying you again. She still lied. To take down someone who would have destroyed everything you built. Richard's voice softened. And somewhere along the way, she fell in love with the man she was protecting. The real question is, are you going to let Victoria win by destroying that love with her last desperate move? Brandon pulled out the ring box, opening it to reveal a pristine diamond. I was going to propose tonight. So what's stopping you? She lied to me. No. Richard stood. She loved you enough to risk everything to protect you. Victoria lied to destroy. Ashley lied to save. There's a difference. Brandon stared at the ring, remembering every moment with Ashley. Her smile, her strength, her unwavering support. The way she'd fought for him, believed in him, loved him. Where is she? He asked quietly. Where she always goes when she needs to think. Brandon was moving before Richard finished speaking. The elevator felt painfully slow as it descended to the lobby. Outside, the autumn air was crisp as he half walked, half ran the familiar path to Central Park. He found her at their coffee cart, sitting on their bench, staring into an untouched cup. Marco, the vendor, caught Brandon's eye and nodded in silent understanding. Is this seat taken? Brandon's voice was soft. Ashley looked up, her eyes red from crying. Brandon. He sat beside her, taking her cold hands in his. I'm sorry. What? She blinked in confusion. You're sorry? I'm the one who loved me enough to risk everything to protect me. He squeezed her hands. Who fought battles I didn't even know about. Who chose love over easy victory. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I never meant to hurt you. I know. He reached up, wiping away her tears. And I almost let fear win again. Almost let Victoria destroy the best thing that's ever happened to me. What are you saying? Brandon slid off the bench, going down on one knee. Ashley's breath caught as he pulled out the ring box. I'm saying that love isn't about perfect truth. It's about perfect trust. He opened the box. And I trust you, Ashley Bennett. With my heart, my life, my future. Will you marry me? For a moment, she just stared at him, tears streaming down her face. Then she launched herself into his arms, nearly knocking him over. Yes. She whispered against his lips. Yes, yes, yes. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, applause erupted. They looked up to find Marco and his regular customers cheering, some wiping away tears of their own. About time, Marco called, out grinning. Coffee's on the house today. Brandon held Ashley close, breathing in her familiar jasmine scent. No more secrets? She touched his face tenderly. No more secrets. Just love. But in her heart, Ashley felt a flicker of fear. Because there was one secret left, one truth she hadn't shared, and tomorrow it would change everything. Again. The morning after their engagement, Brandon woke to an empty bed and a note on Ashley's pillow. Meet me at the office. There's something you need to know. His happiness from the previous day faltered slightly. What more could there be? They'd moved past Victoria's revelations, chosen trust over fear. The ring on Ashley's finger was proof of that commitment. But when he arrived at Mitchell Tech, the atmosphere was strange. Richard Chen waited by Ashley's empty desk, his expression grave. She's in the conference room, Richard said quietly. With the board. Brandon's stomach dropped. What's going on? She asked to tell you herself. The conference room doors felt unusually heavy as Brandon pushed them open. Inside, Ashley stood at the head of the table, facing the assembled board members. She wore the cream silk blouse. From their first kiss, her engagement ring catching the morning light. Brandon, her smile was tremulous. Thank you for coming. Ashley, he moved toward her, but she held up a hand. Please, let me say this while I still have the courage. She took a deep breath. Yesterday, when Victoria revealed my initial involvement in her plans, she didn't show you everything. There's one more truth you need to know. Brandon's heart pounded. Whatever it is, I'm stepping down as your executive assistant. The words rushed out. And I'm taking a position as CEO of Bennett Technologies. The room fell silent. Brandon stared at her, uncomprehending. Bennett Technologies? Ashley's hands trembled as she pressed a button on the conference room screen. A company profile appeared, a rising star in the tech industry, specializing in cybersecurity and corporate defense systems. My company, she said softly. The one I built over the past 5 years while working as a corporate investigator. The one that's been protecting Mitchell Tech systems since the day I arrived. Brandon sank into a chair. You own a tech company? One that's about to go public. She moved closer. And one that's been instrumental in developing the security protocols that stopped Victoria's cyber attacks. That's the real reason I came to Mitchell Tech. Not just to protect you from Victoria, but to protect your company from digital threats you didn't even know existed. The board members murmured among themselves as Ashley continued. Every security upgrade, every system enhancement, it wasn't just me being a good assistant. It was Bennett Technologies software working behind the scenes. She smiled sadly. I wanted to tell you so many times, but I needed to prove myself first. Prove that my feelings for you had nothing to do with business advantages. Brandon's mind raced, connecting dots. The Anderson merger documents were accessed through my company's security protocols. Yes. She nodded. Bennett Technologies has been providing corporate defense services to major companies for years, under different names, through shell corporations to protect our methods. But now you're going public. Brandon stood slowly. As my competitor? No. Ashley's voice strengthened. As your partner, if you'll have me. She handed him a folder, a proposal for a merger between Mitchell Tech and Bennett Technologies. Our companies complement each other perfectly, she explained. Your hardware, our security software, your market presence, our behind-the-scenes expertise. Her voice softened. Just like us. Brandon stared at the proposal, emotions warring in his chest. All this time, I was protecting you, your company, your heart. She touched his arm gently. But I can't be your assistant anymore, Brandon. I need to be your equal. He looked up at her, seeing not just the woman he loved, but a brilliant CEO who had orchestrated protection for his company, while winning his heart. The board needs to vote, he said finally. Yes. She stepped back. And you need time to process this. I understand if you're angry if this changes things between us. Brandon turned to the board members. I move to vote immediately on the proposed merger between Mitchell Tech and Bennett Technologies. Murmurs of surprise filled the room. Ashley's eyes widened. Brandon, you don't have to. All in favor? He looked around the table. Hands raised one by one. Richard Chen's was first, followed by others who had watched Brandon and Ashley's relationship unfold. Motion carries. Brandon turned back to Ashley. Now about my fiancé's resignation. I really do need to step down, she said softly. The SEC. I know. He moved closer. Because my future wife is about to become my business partner instead. Ashley's eyes filled with tears. You're not angry? Angry? He laughed, pulling her into his arms. The brilliant woman I love turns out to be even more incredible than I knew. How could I be angry? The board members diplomatically began filing out, leaving them alone in the sunlit conference room. I was so afraid, Ashley whispered against his chest. After everything with Victoria, I thought if you knew I had my own company agenda. Hey. He tilted her face up to his. What did we say about fear? She smiled through her tears. That love is stronger. Exactly. He kissed her softly. And now I get to love both sides of you. The woman who healed my heart and the CEO who protected my company. Partners? She held out her hand, businesslike despite her tearful smile. Brandon took it, pulling her close instead. In everything. Epilogue. 1 year later, the Mitchell-Bennett Technologies merger made headlines as the tech industry success story of the year. But the real story wasn't in the press releases or stock prices. It was in the small moments. Brandon and Ashley working late in their shared office, finishing each other's sentences during board meetings, stealing kisses between conference calls. It was in the way they faced challenges together, neither hiding behind walls or secrets anymore. And it was in their wedding ceremony, held in Central Park near a certain coffee cart, where Marco handed them their usual orders with a knowing smile. To think, Ashley said later as they danced at their reception, all this started because you needed a new assistant. No. Brandon held her closer. It started because I needed you. I just didn't know it yet. She leaned up to kiss him, her ring catching the light. Still nervous about mixing business with pleasure? Not anymore. He smiled against her lips. Because you taught me the most important merger of all. Oh? Her eyes sparkled. What's that? That when you merge trust with love, fear doesn't stand a chance. As they danced under the stars, Brandon marveled at how far they'd come, from frozen CEO and determined assistant to equal partners in business and life, from fear to trust, from walls to bridges, from loneliness to love. And in the end, that was the real triumph. Not over Victoria or corporate rivals or past trauma, but over the fear that had kept them from embracing love's greatest truth. Sometimes the biggest risk brings the greatest reward. All you need is the courage to take that first step, and someone worth taking it with. Brandon and Ashley had found both in each other, and that was a merger that would last forever. Imagine being in Brandon Mitchell's shoes. After 7 years of building emotional walls because of a devastating betrayal, you finally meet someone who makes your heart beat again. Then you discover that this person had a secret connection to your painful past, even if it was to protect you. Could you, like Brandon, choose love over fear and mistrust? Are there secrets that are impossible to forgive? Even when motivated by love, your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below, letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.